April 2022, Gulfport, Mississippi. Hi, this is Janet, and I'm Sly. Back in 2016, we both decided it was time to stop working, buy an RV, and start traveling the country and the world. And once the RV was pretty much the way we wanted it, we started our travels, and we've been doing it ever since. So join us as we explore this country and the world, and maybe we can even meet up with some of you along the way. We decided to start this week off by exploring the casinos around Gulfport and Biloxi, and as you can see, it was a very windy day. We've had high winds nearly every day since we've been here, and rain on a few others, but that's okay. That hasn't stopped us from getting out and exploring the area. For those of you that have been following us, you know we came from Las Vegas, and the casinos here are not like the casinos there. For starters, the casinos here have windows, and you can actually look out over the Gulf as you play. The other thing is that the casinos here are somewhat smaller, but they're nowhere near as expensive as those in Las Vegas. After exploring the casinos, we moved on down to Fishbone Alley. Fishbone Alley is really just an alley, but it's covered in art, and it's the center of the restaurant and bar district down in Gulfport, Mississippi. The entire area isn't more than about 4 square blocks, so you can pretty well walk through it and be comfortable doing it. We were here a few years ago, and I'll tell you, it looks like the pandemic really took a toll on this area. There were way fewer bars and a lot of empty storefronts, but there are still a few operating, and we enjoyed exploring them and having our bourbon and our rye. We made a stop at the downtown Bistro, and I will tell you, I think this is going to be our new favorite place for a drink while we're down here. Once we got back to the RV, it was time for Janet to do a little baking. Over the next 2 days, she put together some Buckeyes, which are nothing more than peanut butter and chocolate and yummy, and she made a chocolate silk pie. All of this was put together because we have friends coming, and they'll be coming here soon. With all the baking done, it was time to go back to the downtown bistro for a bourbon tasting evening. We tasted 3 different bourbons that night, and all of them were good. I wouldn't turn any of them away at all. And the next day, Bonnie and Roger, our first set of friends that we're going to meet here, arrived. After they had a chance to settle in, they came on over where we had some salami, cheese, and wine ready so that we could sit down and catch up. We haven't seen Roger and Bonnie for well over a year now. Last year, they spent the year over on the East Coast, while Janet and I spent the year over on the West Coast. After spending the winter down in Florida, they're starting their 2022 travels by going west and then up a little bit to the north. Janet and I, on the other hand, were out west and are now making our way east for our summer trip. So it was just a coincidence that we both landed right here in Gulfport, Mississippi during the exact same time. This happens more often than you may think. We often cross paths with our RV friends, and we enjoy every opportunity to get back together again and catch up on what we've seen and what we've done. We had a great time visiting with Roger and Bonnie, and I'm sure that we'll get together and do a few things while we're all here in Gulfport, Mississippi. But for now, it's time for us to get ready because tomorrow we have yet another set of friends that we're going to meet while we're here in Gulfport, Mississippi. Another one of those coincidental crossings. The next day arrives and it's time to put the finishing touches on the pie that Janet made a few days prior. Because tonight we're heading over to see Susan and Mike. Another one of those coincidental crossings. We met Susan and Mike back in Las Vegas late last year. Susan and Mike are heading up northeast, and this happened to be one of their stops, so there was no way we were going to miss an opportunity to spend some time with them. We had a great night with them, but the next day it was time to clean up the Jeep a little bit and start getting ready for a night out with both Roger and Bonnie and Mike and Susan. Our first stop was a local distillery where we had planned to sample some of the local spirits. But that didn't quite work out, so we quickly adjusted plans and went down the road to a local brewery. At the brewery, we got a chance to look inside and see some of the equipment they use, and we also had a better chance to sit down and sample some of the beer they produce right there in that brewery. Now, the brewery was fun, but we started the day with wanting to sample some spirits. So, after a short stop at the brewery, we headed on down to the downtown bistro so we could have some bourbon. Well, we had bourbon. Roger and Bonnie were more into wine and beer, and so was Mike. Either way, we all had fun chatting and drinking away at the downtown bistro. We will certainly be back here again. After all, this is our favorite bar. The next day, we again met up with Susan and Mike and headed on down to Bay St. Louis, Mississippi to explore this little town. This is a neat little town, and it's well worth exploring. It has all sorts of art on the walls, and we've seen that in other places, but what this place had was something that I have not yet seen before, and it is dead trees. But not just any dead trees that had been carved and painted into beautiful works of art. There were several of these in this one little town. While we enjoyed all the art, we also enjoyed exploring the shops. This is the shops at Century Hall. This is a good-sized building with plenty of little shops, all of them worth exploring. Lots of neat little knickknacks and all sorts of little works of art. It's fun. We spent long enough in Bay St. Louis to enjoy lunch. We found this neat little restaurant at the Pearl Hotel. Janet enjoyed this wonderfully colorful salad, and I had a chorizo and clam soup. Both were great. After lunch, we enjoyed a cup of coffee and then headed on out and finished exploring this neat little town. One of the things that's really neat about this part of the country are these huge giant oak trees. There are lots of them down here, and they are truly impressive. With that, we called it a day and headed on back because Janet and I had to meet Roger and Bonnie for a farewell drink. Bonnie and Roger are heading on west tomorrow to continue their travels, and we, of course, are going to move on east. But I'm sure we'll see him again. We are now more than halfway through our stay here in Gulfport, Mississippi, and we have had fun visiting friends. But soon it is going to be time to move on, although not just yet. We are still looking forward to another week of exploring and visiting friends. And speaking of exploring, don't forget, take a look at the description below and you will find a link to every single place we visited, so that way you can find it without working as hard as we did. Janet and I both hope that you enjoy watching these videos and following along with our travels, and we certainly hope that you will join us as we continue to explore this stop.